Chapter 11. Dawn of the Journey. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracked windows of the abandoned tavern, casting a warm, golden hue over the ruin. The night's chaos had left its mark, but with the coming of morning, a sense of calm began to settle. Garrett, Lyra, Silas, Morik, and Kaida all stirred from their rest, their wounds bandaged and their spirits renewed by the victory over the Gnolls. As the sun began to rise, the adventurers gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. The once foreboding interior of the tavern now felt like a temporary haven, its dark corners filled with the echoes of their recent battle. They checked their supplies, ensuring that they had everything they needed for the journey ahead. Garrett reviewed the items they had discovered: a worn journal with cryptic notes and strange symbols that seemed to point towards Kael'Drath. "Looks like we're finally heading to Kael'Drath," Lyra said, adjusting her pack. "I hope this city has more answers than the last few places we've been." "Let's hope so," Morik replied, his eyes scanning the journal. "These symbols might be important. We'll need to keep an eye out for anything related to them." Kaida glanced up as she was folding her bedroll. "We should be cautious. If this city is as troubled as the Advocate suggested, we could be walking into more danger." Silas looked around curiously. "I suppose the Advocate left in the night." Garrett and Lyra both glanced around the broken-down tavern, Garrett nodding. "I guess so." Lyra shrugged. She could have said goodbye. Kinda rude. Kaida smiles at the comment. "I agree. And she wasn't that helpful during the encounter with the Gnolls." With final preparations complete, the party stepped out into the crisp morning air. The ruined tavern was now a silhouette against the rising sun as the group walked away from it. The adventurers took a deep breath, the fresh air invigorating them as they set their sights on their destination. Kael'Drath awaited them, a city of legend shrouded in mystery and promise. The journey began smoothly, the terrain gradually shifting from the broken village to rolling hills and dense woodlands. Lyra took point, guiding the group along the winding path. "Do you think the city will be as grand as the stories say?" Lyra asked, glancing back at the others. "I've heard it's massive," Garrett replied, "but with recent unrest, it might not be as welcoming as it used to be." As they made their way along the stream, Morik used his knowledge of the land to ensure they avoided potential hazards. "Stay alert," he said. "We're not out of danger yet." Suddenly, Nyx and Kaida both looked in the same direction as the peace was broken by the rustling of leaves and the sound of hurried footsteps. The party tensed, readying their weapons. The group held their words and their positions. They quietly hid as well as they could in the trees. Silas smirks and whispers, "I almost forgot," and she weaves a spell silently that she learned in her time training to be a druid. Kaida glances at her as Silas meets her eyes and says, "Pass without trace." The spell passes through each of the adventurers as they all suddenly feel a bit more stealthy. Silas motions for Garrett to continue, and he indeed does start moving, never losing sight of the creatures stalking them in the forest. He smirks slightly and whispers to Lyra, "I am certainly glad we have a few spellcasters in this group." Lyra nods to him with a smile as they keep moving along the forest unimpeded, unseen, and unharmed. As the sun reached its zenith, Kael'Drath finally came into view. The city sprawled across the horizon, its imposing architecture a stark contrast to the surrounding landscape. Tall spires and fortified walls rose above the skyline, while the bustling activity within hinted at a city alive with both opportunity and danger. "Well, that's quite a sight," Morik remarked, his eyes widening at the sight of the city. "I've heard stories, but seeing it in person is something else." The party approached the city gates, where they were met by a pair of stern-faced guards. The guards eyed them with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "State your business," one of them demanded. "Kael'Drath is not a place for idle wanderers." Garrett stepped forward, presenting their credentials and explaining their purpose. "We're here on a quest to uncover some important information. We've heard the city is facing some serious issues, and we need to investigate. Also, we can lend a hand in any repairs or assistance we can offer the sick or injured." The guards, after a brief exchange, allowed them entry, albeit with a warning. "Be cautious. The city is rife with tension. Not all welcome visitors with open arms." As they stepped through the gates, the bustling streets of Kael'Drath unfolded before them. Merchants peddled their wares, townsfolk hurried about their business, and the air was filled with the sounds of a city at the edge of change. "This place is alive with activity," Lyra noted, looking around with interest. "Let's find out what we can and make our way to the heart of the city." The adventurers began to explore Kael'Drath, gathering information and making connections. Their first task was clear: find the person who could provide the answers they sought and unravel the mysteries that awaited them within the city's walls. The adventure was far from over, and the path ahead promised both peril and discovery.